Welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, where we celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Again, I want to thank you so much for following, sharing, subscribing, and supporting these inspirational guests that share their stories of overcoming adversity and how they found ways to cope with what's going on in their lives and sharing their expertise in where they are in their lives now and how they are helping others. And I'm so excited that we are coming into the autumn and winter. And if you'd like to check out my programs and events that are happening, please go to sharonfitzmaurice.mindfulness.com. And now, on to our next guest. Dr. Mary O Kane is a lecturer in psychology, early childhood studies, and education with the Open University. Mary presents the radio show Perfectly Imperfect Parenting on Dublin City FM. She is also a regular contributor to the Anton Savage show on Newstalk Radio, Drivetime on RTE Radio 1, and a range of other radio shows discussing a broad range of parenting issues. She gives public talks on topics related to child well-being, parenting, and education, and is well known for her humorous, down-to-earth approach. Mary is the author of 2 books for parents, carers, and educators: Perfectly Imperfect Parenting, Connection, Not Perfection, and Anxious Children in an Anxious World, Facing Fears and Finding Brave, which reached #1 in the Irish Times bestseller, and I know was a finalist also in the Parenting Best Cover category in the Next Generation Indie Book Awards. Mary, you are very welcome.
Oh, Sharon, thank you. I am really looking forward to our chat today.
Well, Mary, I am too. And I had the privilege of being your guest on your
Yes.
show on Dublin FM for your podcast also. And again, you are just a beautiful person to talk to and to listen to. And I know that from your following that people love listening to you, your insights, but it is that down to earth approach. And you make all of your guests very welcome and they just want to have that lovely conversation openly and honestly with you. So well done, you, Mary.
Right back at you, Sharon, because I could say the exact same about you, and it was a joy to have you on as well. And again, a beautiful soul that comes
Oh,
across.
thank you, Mary. And one of the things, and I said that to you as well, is I think it's so important that we share our stories, our experiences, our knowledge and wisdom, and also where we have, failed,
Yeah.
that's not always succeeding in life. And no matter where we are or what we're doing, that we've also faced adversity and challenges in our own lives. And through that, it has helped us in our work to help
Yeah.
others and to share those experiences.
hmm
So with everybody, when they look at you now, Mary, and they'll say, well, she's on the radio and she has the podcast and she's lecturing and she has the
Oh.
books written and she has it all figured out. What do you say to those
Oh.
people, Mary?
Oh, Sharon, I'll tell you what I say to them. That's why I called the first book Perfectly Imperfect Parenting,
Mm.
because, oh my God, I am so imperfect in my parenting. And I think that's one of the things I really wanted to get across in the book. I think, Sharon, when I had my first baby, my God, I put such pressure on myself. I mean, I I was overjoyed. I mean, it was probably the most important thing that has ever happened to me in my life. And I had this gorgeous little human being, and I just wanted to be perfect. I wanted to get everything right. But I also had this belief that if I didn't get everything right, like I could harm her, I could damage her. And I put myself, oh, Sharon, I put myself under huge pressure. And one of the things with that first book was to get across that no, you do not have to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection, particularly in parenting. I remember this woman at one of my talks said to me at the end of the talk, she said to me, a perfect parent is like a unicorn. We've all heard of them, but have you ever actually seen one? No, 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 because they don't exist. And I was laughing at her. And it stuck with me because I thought, you are so right. Like, but yet we think everybody else is doing it properly and doing it well. And I wanted it to be a book that was like, first of all, you don't have to do that, but it wouldn't actually be good for your child anyway. You know, our flaws are good for our kids. Like even our little mistakes. Like, and I don't mean neglect, but little things we get wrong. help our children become strong and resilient and realize, my mum isn't perfect, my dad isn't perfect, but they don't have to be. Life is sometimes unpredictable, but I'm strong and I can cope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was really important to me. But Sharon, my second book is all about children with anxiety. And that one was a huge one for me because one of mine really struggles. And when I go and give talks to parents, and that's of all the talks I give, oh Sharon, that's the one you're guaranteed a full crowd.
Mm.
And I I don't want to share my daughter's life because she didn't want to go on the radio. It's not, I don't have the right to share her story. But she is older now. She's 21. And I've spoken to her about sharing pieces and would she mind? And she's like, no, let people know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Let people
Mm.
know that you can get through this. And so for that reason, I share bits of her stuff. But Sharon, I remember the day I decided to write that book. So when I would tell parents at talks, look, one of mine struggles and blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't have really said it publicly on the
Mm.
radio or whatever. And I remember seeing this thing on Facebook. You know the way you're scrolling through Facebook and you see these memes or whatever, and this thing came up, and it was all about good mothers have messy kitchens but happy children. Now I know people mean that well, like they mean don't worry about the mess in your kitchen. But when your child isn't happy, when your child is in distress,
Mm.
and you see that, oh my God, it cut to the core,
Mm.
And the only message I got from it is, well, this is your fault. You are not a good mom. And if you had been, she wouldn't be struggling in this
Mm.
way. And when you nearly process something, and I thought, you know what? No, that's not fair. And yet we're made feel this way the whole time. And that was the day, Sharon, I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to write, because I've been debating writing a second book, and I thought, I'm going to write this book, and I'm going to write it for all, mostly mothers, really, but dads as well, but for the mothers I felt who felt like me, and
Mm.
felt, this is my fault, and it's because I've done everything wrong that she's struggling, and I then thought, again, I am careful what I share about her, but in sharing her story in terms of my involvement in it.
Mm.
Um, and I think that was why even the book got to number one on the bestsellers, because it came from that perspective. I'm living this and I know how damn hard it is. And I know the shame it makes you feel and the failure it makes you feel. And so I think the book came from that perspective.
Mm.
So God, if anyone thought it was perfect before they read that one, they certainly don't now, Sharon. They know the truth. But we're all in it together and we're all imperfect, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think maybe it's the age of social media, where people post those
Mm.
perfect pictures and perfect children and they all look happy and they're on their holidays
Oh,
or they're winning awards or they're doing everything. And even just, in the last week or two with Leaving Cert results and people posting
yeah.
about their children getting all H1s and getting the
Um,
course. And my heart goes out to the parents of the children that didn't succeed,
yeah.
that didn't succeed at school, maybe for many reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe they were anxious, maybe there was other things going on, maybe they're not academic, and they're
Mhm.
comparing themselves. And I think sometimes the parents take that on and go, I should have done more
Yeah.
for my child.
I think you're right. We take it to heart, don't we? I think there is this pressure put on parents. We're nearly sold a lie that if you do everything right, your child will be successful. And that's not true. Well, first of all, you can't do everything right. But even if you could, that's not real. But I know exactly what you mean. Between all the leaving cert, whoa, and the points and whatever, and the back to school photographs,
Yeah.
even, and I've been saying to parents, because I would have parents contacting me saying my child is struggling to go in, and so the parent is looking at these photographs back to school of these perfect, shiny, happy children running in the door, and the parent is thinking, I'm a failure because my child is struggling. And when our children are struggling, we absorb it. We feel it's me, I'm the failure. But there's so many children just struggling with anxiety at the moment. And school, Sharon, school just seems to be causing such challenges for our children. At the moment on Dublin City FM, I'm doing a series, like a back to school series, on different types of anxiety, on kids going back to school at all levels. But I was interviewing a lady called Kate Brennan, a therapist, the other day, and she was talking about the kids who just cannot go in. They absolutely cannot go in the door.
Mm.
And she was saying the last figures we have, there were 175,000 children were down as having the more than 24 days off school in the academic year. That was 22-23. Now, obviously, some of them will have other reasons, but that's a lot of days off school.
Mm.
And as people involved in education or in psychology or therapists would all say, what they're seeing is that the main reason is anxiety. These children are gripped by fear, and it's not that they won't go in, which is sometimes the attitude. Oh, she won't go to school. No, 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 no. She can't, literally cannot get in the door to go to school. Um, and I think I've been talking to a lot of parents about this at the moment. And again, Karen, it's the absolute shame they're feeling, the lack of understanding. Society just doesn't seem to get this. Your parents are saying to me they've been told one woman, she'd be about 5'2", and her son is about 6'4", like he's in the leaving cert cycle. And last year she was told, just get him out of bed, drag him out of bed and take him in. And she's like, how? Yeah, can you
Mm.
explain to me how I'm going to do that? But even the breach of trust
Mm.
in dragging a child and pushing them in the door. I mean, you're
Mm.
supposed to be their safe space.
Mm.
But definitely, I think, Karen, school just seems to be causing huge issues, whether it is the points in the competition or, right from the little ones, right up, a
Mm.
struggle to get in the door. And, I think particularly in the secondary school system, we need to ask ourselves as society, what is happening that so many of our children are struggling in that environment?
Mm.
Because when those numbers are that high, you have to stop looking at the children and also start going back to saying, hold on, the environment plays a role here. What is happening? And I don't mean individual teachers. I mean that environment that we've set up.
Yeah. I so agree with you, Mary. I've seen it with my own two who are adults now as well.
Mm.
And how, and again, I'm only talking about from my own personal experience. And my eldest, he got up every day himself for school, dressed impeccably in his uniform, always liked to look fabulous, but he never did a tap of work at school. He wasn't ever afraid of going in, but he
Yes.
wasn't that type of learner. He didn't learn, as he said, if the teacher told me stories and explained through a personal thing, he said he'd come back with every single detail and tell me, and I noticed that particularly in fourth class,
Yeah.
that one teacher changed his, I suppose, perspective on what school is about. He said,
Okay.
because her head's down writing for hours, reading for hours. He said, nobody talks to us or asks
Mm.
us questions. He was in fourth
Mm.
class. So going into secondary school, obviously it was different teachers, different personalities, all of that, different people. But he came home from school and he taught me, Mary, because again, now I'm an adult and my experience was very different to his. But he said they focus on the ones that are answering all the questions, that do all of the work.
Yeah.
And then we're told that we're not listening or sometimes told we're useless. And he said,
Yeah.
you start to believe it. So he said, what I did is he said, I started proving to them what they were telling me.
Oh, Sharon.
And how hard is that for a parent? Because I can't go in and sit in the school for him,
No.
do it. And he had to choose. But I kept saying to him, you're going to find your way no matter what in life.
Yes.
You're going to
Yeah.
find your way. This is the structure we have in place at the moment in Ireland. I can't change that structure. I
Yeah.
can only give you that ability to say that you are not less than anybody else in this school. You will find your way. You have to believe in yourself, that there is
Yeah.
something for everybody out there. And he has now excelled. You know, he went on to
Yes.
do an apprenticeship. He's now working in Australia. He's having a great life. But I'm thinking about peers of his that were in
Yes.
that same
Yeah.
situation that didn't even have the confidence to do
That's it.
anything
Or maybe
afterwards.
the same, they didn't have the same support at home. They
Yes.
didn't have that other voice. Because I do think it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And funny, I would say I was that kid in school as well. I mean, I would have always gone under the radar. I would. I never excelled in school, certainly not in secondary school. And I would have been sort of kid, just completely under the radar, little Miss Nobody going along. And you do absorb that. You do, you see reflected, their view of you, and you start to become that. And I know for me, it was only after I left school and I didn't go to college. And years later, I went back to the Open University. I lived in London, went back to do my degree and started with the Open University. And it was like, whoa, they saw me completely differently. They saw me as potential, a little pot of potential. And you start to live up to what others believe of you. And I wonder, like your son, had you telling him, this might not be the context for you, but I believe in you. And yet, the kids maybe don't have that at home or never find a teacher. It's funny. You just mentioned there how a teacher can make a difference. Oh my gosh, in a positive way or in a negative way. And I'm with my kids, I've kind of had both along the way. Like I've had teachers who've been huge. They've made such a phenomenal impact in the lives of my kids. But I've also had teachers who have damaged my kids. And sometimes by doing exactly that, by absolute, neglect. But you know what I mean? I mean, my eldest daughter would have been exactly like me in school. They never saw any potential with her, but she went straight to university and blossomed. It is worrying that so many of us just don't fit in, or we don't believe we fit in, or we're not getting those messages. And look at the levels of teenage anxiety today. Our teens are struggling on so many levels. I mean, social media, oh my gosh, they're dealing with stuff we never had to deal with. But they spend a huge amount of their time in that school context. And that context seems to also be failing a huge number of them. And as I said, it's not individual teachers because I think this is a systemic problem. And I don't know whether in the future we will actually say, okay, this school environment suits 50% of our kids and they'll go there, but we're actually going to develop new environments, or
Mhm.
whether we need to rethink what's there. I don't really know what the answer is, but I know that the system we have at the moment is failing so many of our children. And every one of us in society should be concerned about that.
I think you're so right, Mary. And I have seen it, as I said, through my own experience, and I have met other parents, and as I said,
Mm.
some of their children excel, and in the same family, some of the other children don't in that academic environment, and
Yeah.
that they focus on academia more so than the creative side of the child.
Yes.
And but then again, I was interviewing a girl that I went to school with over 30 years ago, and she was a boarder in the school. And she was, I said I used to look at the boarders and think they were all rich and from great families, and they had everything. But as she said, it wasn't always like that. She was going home looking after five other kids, at the weekends. She had to really put the work in, but she met great friends. But she saw the school system very different to me, and that she was
Yes.
involved in sports and drama and music. She had more opportunities
Mm.
than I felt I had or was given or offered, I should say at times, because as I said to her afterwards, I said, nobody ever asked me to sing in a school play. or
Yeah.
to, pick up an instrument and learn it. Because if you didn't have the money to buy the instrument years ago, then you didn't get to play it.
You were written off. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, for me, it's the opportunities we're given within that system. So
Yeah.
if it is a system like it is right now, and it's totally focused on, the results, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a competition between schools about the
Yeah.
results and who gets where, that definitely has to change. I'm not sure how it's going to change either, Mary, but in a perfect world, Mary, what would our schooling system actually look like?
Oh, well, now that's an interesting one. And funny, Sharon, I look at now, obviously, so I lecture in psychology, but I lecture in early ed. And I think, again, in society, we underestimate the value of the early years education, that whole system. And to me, the early years are actually leading the way because they look at holistic development. They are so good. Now, the forest school approach, play-based learning is absolutely becoming the norm. The forest school, maybe not so much, but we're getting kids outdoors a lot more. And forest schools are popping up everywhere, which are brilliant. But the whole idea of the play-based learning, getting kids outdoors, hands-on learning, experiential learning, has absolutely taken over those early years. But it's starting to feed up. And the Sudbury schools, there's how many of them around Ireland? I was talking to a lady the other day. Her name is Laura Lovett, and she's a neuroscientist. She is setting up a new school in Dublin in September 2026, a new primary school. They're only going to have maybe 3 or 4 classes at the beginning, coming at education from a neuroscience background, really experiential, really play-based learning, that it's slowly filtering in that that's what we should be doing. Like we know that young children learn through play. Sharon, we know that older children learn through being active and playing. We know that adults do. We actually know this, but we seem to think, oh no, that playfulness, that interaction, no, we'll let go of that and we'll have them sitting at their desks and we'll give them workbooks. And I mean, by the time they get to secondary school, I mean, they're points fixated from the minute they go in the door. But we know in psychology and education that that's not what we should be doing. And I think it's starting to filter down. But I think if we could have more of that learning, I mean, you just said the academics are not for every child, but they're not the be all and end all. Why have we become fixated with academics when in life that is not what's really important? I mean, Sharon, I'm an absolute believer in education. Absolutely. However, there's lots of different ways to educate yourself. There's lots of different areas. And if you are extremely artistic, maybe, if you're musical, we rule that out. I mean, that's not academic. We don't want to focus on that. Oh my gosh, those skills, those talents are so important in our world. Do you not think during COVID we realised that a little bit too? Remember in COVID, I mean, none of us were sitting doing our maths. We were baking. We were doing our keep fit with Joe Wicks in the morning. We were out in the garden. We were gardening. We were growing. We were knitting. God, I was knitting away during COVID. Oh, my daughter had me knitting. The Christmas shoe boxes. She'd been knitting these little dude dolls, they call them, that you knit. I'd knit them and she sewed them up to go in the Christmas shoe boxes. But but we went back to those things. We went back to music. Like, I know so many people who started to try and learn an instrument with YouTube over the whole COVID experience. They, we should learn from that because when we were really under threat, when our world changed in that way, when we realized what's really important. And it was family, it was friends, and it was those experiences. And yet we seem to have forgotten it already.
Yes, I did say that. I said the pandemic had changed a lot, and it
Mm,
made me realize that, and especially with some clients, they were like, I've been in this job, it was the pensionable job, but I actually hate it. And I took COVID for me to realize that I hated it so much. And
Yeah.
now I want to change, but I'm not sure where to change because they have been programmed for years.
Oh,
And again, that's what the education system was really based on. It was to get workers,
yeah.
sitting at desks in lines, and the bell rings, you go on your break, the bell rings, you come back, the bell rings, you leave, you know, all
Oh,
of the rules and regulations. And
oh,
she
because
said,
that's so good for our mental health, isn't it, Sharon? Hmm.
yes. So there's all of those things. As I said, it's an old system now. And,
Yeah,
I know it's going to take time. Maybe it won't change in our lifetime, but I would hope for our children's children or grandchildren that that would have changed. And as you said, it slowly is changing.
yeah.
Even the pressure for teachers, to follow this curriculum, and the
Oh, yeah,
pressure of, their students getting high marks in each class, that every year they're looked at as well and go, well, how come there's 50% of your class failing? And,
yeah.
they have that pressure on top of them. So I'm sure even the teachers are feeling that pressure as well.
Oh, absolutely. And their lack of time. You know, I mean, I say I'm teaching whatever subject I'm teaching, particularly if I'm working towards the exam year, and that might be fifth and sixth year that they're working towards, or even younger as well. They're not given enough time to really explore their subjects. Everything seems to be focused on results. And I honestly think, though, Sharon, we are realizing that our teenagers are struggling with their mental health. I think as society, we're so aware of it. Say social media. I think in the last how many years, we are becoming more and more aware of the dangers. I mean, we may have sort of opened the stable doors and off goes the horse, but we're realizing that. And we're thinking, hold on, we need to pull this back. This is not healthy. So we're seeing the damage that social media has caused so many of our children. And we are starting to really respond. But I think with education, it's the same. We're actually really starting to see, hold on. I mean, if 175,000 of our kids in that academic year 22-23 had more than that 2024, I think, James, it is, out of school. Now, as I said, there may be multiple reasons. Some of them may have had a serious medical illness that they were out for that period, but that's a long period of time. And certainly anecdotally, huge numbers of those are because of their mental health. The awareness is growing. And I think awareness always comes before change. We nearly have this period where people are talking about things and they're realizing it and they're starting to accept it, because that's what we did with social media. It seemed to take so long, and it's only now we're starting, I think, to really act on it. The way schools are saying now, no, we're going to be not have mobile phones in our schools, and even parents groups are sometimes coming together saying, no, we're going to give them the old brick phones. We're not giving them their iPhones, whatever. We're going to hold off. We're trying to hold off on it now. And I think the same is happening with the education system. We are really starting to realize we have to do something. The other thing is, Sharon, as these kids start to grow. So my eldest is 27. Now, she's living abroad at the moment, but before she went away, she was working in the Department of Justice. And without going into too much details of what she was doing, she would have been looking at a lot of cases that were coming up with the guards. And a huge number of the cases that she would have been involved in involved social media or involved technology and phones. So that could have been anything from oh, cyberbullying to, but using phones and social media, because I don't want to go into too much detail about what she was doing in a very negative way. Now, she is only 27, but oh, you should hear her talk about phones. And her whole attitude is, my children will not be getting phones. Absolutely not. Now, I know we all say things about our children before we have our children. I really do know that one. But I think her generation are seeing the damage. and they're seeing the mistakes that we made.
Mm.
And I think that generation coming up are going to start being an awful lot more strict
Mm.
than the teenagers now would have experienced,
Yeah.
because I think they're aware of the damage. They know themselves. I was interviewing another lady recently, and she works going out to schools, talking to them about phone usage, whatever. She used to always work in secondary schools. She's now working in primary schools because she said it's too late. She used to go in second year and fifth year TY to speak to them. She said, too late. She's now dealing with all the primary schools. She's trying to get in early. I said, in the primary schools, the children are now usually getting phones for their communion. They buy it with their communion money. And so they're very young children. And one of the exercises she does with them is when she goes into the individual classroom, she gets them to write down if they have a phone, which, I mean, by the time she hits them, they're probably about fifth class, fourth, fifth, and they all do. How long they're allowed on their phone every day. And then she gets them, and it's completely anonymous. They're not allowed to put their names on it. How long they think they should be allowed on the phone every day. And she said, you would imagine that they would say, well, I'm allowed on for 2 hours. I should be allowed on for 4. Sharon, it's the opposite. She said, these are primary school children. And she said, always they say they should be allowed on for less than they are. She said, these are young children. And she said, already they know it's not good. And she said, the number of them as they get older who will say, I actually wish it wasn't, I can't live without it. I absolutely can't live without it, but I wish it wasn't there. I think my life would be easier. Isn't that scary, Sharon?
And what I feel when you're saying that is first I feel a bit of a sadness, that a young
Oh,
child would say, I should be on it less, but maybe the parents are on their phone, so they think it's normal, or they don't realize
yeah.
that they're spending as much time, so
Hmm.
they're not noticing their child being on their own phone as long.
Yeah.
So for me, it feels like a disconnection. And hello, we are all guilty.
Oh,
If
yeah.
on my phone, and sometimes I go, oh my God, and I'm looking at videos and different things like that. An hour could pass, Mary, before you know it at
Oh,
all.
yeah.
And you're going, where did that hour go? And it's
Yeah.
only when myself and my husband were away, and like that, I notice, you observe somebody else, and he
Mm.
had his phone. I try and put my phone away from me in the evening when I'm not
Yeah.
looking, and because I know if I pick it up, a half an hour go by, I'm answering things, da 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 da. Da. But I noticed him and I sat back and I said, you've picked your phone up several times in the last half hour because it was in
Yeah.
front of you. I said,
Yeah.
you put your phone away, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be thinking of it as often. And
Yeah.
I would see this with kids when they carry their phones around, it's constantly, which is causes anxiety. It's, did I get a text? Did I get a like? Did I, whatever it
Oh,
is, did I
yeah.
get a Snapchat? So it's creating anxiety all
Mm.
of the time. So yes, especially
Hmm.
with younger children, you know, I was lucky, I suppose, because my children didn't ask for it until they were sixth class going into first year.
Yeah.
And part of me,
I was the
hands up
same.
as well, was, oh, great, because they're going into the town. We live in the country, and I'll be able to keep an eye on
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Because my fear was, will they be okay? What if they
Mm.
can't reach me?
Oh,
So it
yeah.
was part of my fear
Yeah.
that I needed to be in constant connection with them, even though you can't because they're at school. That's
Yes.
ridiculous. Ridiculous. What
Mm.
did our own parents do? But for me, it's the disconnection that phones are causing. Now, we
Yeah.
can't say it's the phone because we as adults have control over the amount of times we pick up that
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
But children do not have that control system.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like years ago, if you sat down to watch a cartoon because you were so excited, or a film or whatever, you'd sit there with your eyes glued to it. A child, and you see small children, they're given a phone by a parent. Sometimes they're under pressure. Here's the phone. That will keep you occupied for a little
Yeah.
while. And the child is hypnotized by it, by whatever is being shown. And it could be educational. That's great,
Yeah.
but there's only so much of that. It is hypnotizing. It's programming to see
Oh, it's
action,
addictive.
color. Yes, that's what it's doing.
Yeah,
So
it's addictive.
the
And it's
phone is
funny.
not the problem.
Yeah, it's us. I
No.
think you hit the nail on the head there when you said about that when they go into first year. Sharon, I was exactly the same. That's our generation. So they were going to secondary school and we all thought, oh, but I have to. And it was, I think it was that they were either walking a long distance or maybe they're getting a bus to school or it wasn't us, dropping them up the road or walking up the
Yeah.
road with them or whatever. But do you ever think though as well, and again, I think when we talk about our teenagers' anxiety and whatever, when we look at ourselves, I think we were the first generation of really scared parents. Like my mum's generation and her mum's generation, sure, they weren't scared. Parenting was not a verb when my mother had us. Like, no, you shoved them in the car and you did your
Mm.
best and you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It was so much more relaxed. And I do understand why that changed because I think my grandmother's generation and my mother's generation thought their children were safe.
Mm.
They realized they hadn't been safe. And my generation, Sharon, we became so terrified. And I think that's had a knock-on effect on our kids. And I'm holding my hand up here and I'm saying absolutely me myself that I always think we were the play date generation. And I remember when my eldest was little, oh my God, she was a play date queen. She would have been in everybody's. I was in everybody's house. They were all in mine. Like, oh, she'd have gone on a play date with Jack the Ripper. Like off she went and whatever. But we all did this and we never left our kids. So
Mm.
when we were, and this was in primary school, we'd be going to somebody's house. So you'd never leave because you were suspicious of every single person out there. And we all hovered. But say we'd be having our cup of coffee and the kids would be in the back garden because you would not let them go on the road because that would be bad parenting.
Mm.
They were safely in the back garden. They were locked in. And we would hear a blood-curdling scream from the back garden. And we'd all jump up and we'd go running out to the back garden. And we would be secretly hoping that ours was the one who was wounded and not the one who'd caused the damage. Because if your kid had caused the damage, oh, you were definitely a bad parent then. But we'd go running out and we'd hover. Can you tell me what happened? And do you want to share with him how you feel? We micromanage and we hover and we haven't let them become resilient. We've been so controlling. And then, do you remember when Madeleine McCann went missing?
Mm.
So my youngest would have been the same age as Madeleine McCann. And oh, I remember when she went missing and it was like, ha, proof we were right all along. If you don't hover over your child 24/7, they are going to be snatched into ether. Now, I know she was left in a room,
Mm.
but that didn't matter to us. To us, it meant if you weren't in the playground standing 1 foot from your child, up with your hands like this, well, then they could be snapped. Like we became so fearful.
Mm.
I think we did such a big 360 from our parents. We just became scared of everything and everyone. So we controlled everything. We hovered over our children in a way that previous generations didn't. So we didn't allow them that freedom to play, the freedom to explore, the freedom to make mistakes and learn. This generation, the research in with our teens and young adults tells us they see mistakes as failure, out and out failure. Mistakes are how we learn. So how did that shift? And
Mm.
I think it was us. And I'm not parent bashing because, oh my God, I was a ringleader among us. Like I believed in this. Like I was one of the scared parents. But I think we got so scared that we've stopped them, maybe this generation, from becoming as strong and resilient as they could have been. You know the way they call teenagers and young adults snowflakes. And I hate that because I think, don't you dare call them a snowflake, because if they're a snowflake, we're responsible.
Mm.
We need to take responsibility for this,
Mm.
not them. Um, and I think I suppose we're learning and we're growing. We were trying our best to be good. We were trying our best to be the perfect parent, and we had been sold this lie. Like, these parenting books are making us feel if you don't have this regimented schedule and
Yeah.
if you don't let them cry it out or this won't work and you have to feed every, I don't know how many hours because I could never do it properly the way I should have done it. But
Mm.
it was all being put in us to be perfect. And I think it's had just this knock-on effect. I don't know if you've experienced the same.
Yeah, so much what if you when you're saying it, I know when I had my first child, I was overcautious again as a new parent. You are afraid if they fall, if they're, checking if they're breathing when they're first born.
Yes.
I remember I was feeding my son in the bed, and it was those first few days and weeks, and I was so exhausted, and we had the
Mm.
Moses basket beside the bed. But I woke up in the morning and he was in the Moses basket, and I burst out crying. And I said to my husband, "Oh my God, he slipped off my belly and down into the Moses basket." I was so exhausted. And John said, "And did he manage to cover himself as well?" But that was the fear of
Oh,
hurting
yes.
or doing something wrong. But I remember
Yeah.
ringing my mother as well, and then she started telling me loads of funny stories, about when she had small children, or my sister, my sister was breastfeeding and she fell asleep and the baby rolled down under the covers, and it was like, oh my God, I could have sworn.
I've done that. I've done that, Sharon. I was just thinking about when you said that. I thought, oh, and you look back and you think, oh my God, and the fear it strikes into you, and the baby's gone. Oh
Yeah.
God.
So, I mean, that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
that might be not Instagram friendly, to share those
No.
stories, but I mean, they are the real stories. And I know
Yeah.
with you and with myself, we're very honest and we're open and we say it as it is. And for me, I suppose the fear of a new parent is that
Mm.
you won't do it right because you're not sure, because even the parenting books, it's not your child that's in the book and exactly what's
Yeah.
happening for you. When my
Yeah.
second child came along, I was less cautious. It was amazing. I would
Yeah.
say that it was less cautious. And I have a sister-in-law, and she said by the time she had her fourth boy, she nearly forgot that he was there because it was such a busy house and she'd done all the fluffing around. So I
Yeah.
think we do learn through experience, just as you
Yeah.
said, Mary, and through awareness. And
Mm.
for the mistakes that we believe we made as young parents with our first children,
Mhm.
we were trying to do our best, and
Yeah.
you're always saying that. And again, even perfectly imperfect parenting, there is no perfect way to parent. You
There
do the
isn't.
best for your child,
Yeah.
to be that support and guidance and person that is a person of safety for the child.
Yeah.
No matter what they're going through, they always have you.
Mm.
One of the things that you
Yeah.
talked about also, Mary, which I thought was really interesting because it is about these helicopter lawnmower parents, and
Yeah.
that we
Hmm.
want to make sure everything is all right for our children and to fix it before, they
Oh.
have time to even think about how to fix it.
Yeah.
We have been also um, responsible for doing that for our children in this generation.
Absolutely, Sharon. And I think back, it is funny how you parent each child differently. And I'm thinking that as I listen to you. But I remember, so I have girl, boy, girl. And I remember when my son was in junior infants and my eldest two went to two different schools and I had the baby on the hip sort of thing. Well, she
Mm.
wasn't a baby, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
She's still my baby. Anyway, on the hip. And, oh, mornings were frantic and I'd be running around the place sorting everything out. But in the morning, my eldest daughter would be my helper. So I'd say to her, oh, pet, would you run and grab me that? Or, oh, pet, would you grab this for the baby? Or, oh, would you do this? She was my little helper. But Prince of Princes used to come down, boy child, the stairs in the morning, Sharon, in his little uniform. And he'd one of these little tie on the elastic. And he'd sit, maybe second from the bottom of the stairs, with his little shoes, his Velcro shoes beside him. And he'd sit like the little king he believed he was, till Muggins here came along, grabbed the foot, put the shoe in, grabbed the other foot. If it was winter and he had a coat on, I'd stand him up and zip him up. And one day I thought, are you doing? I mean, the messages, first of all, very sexist. Because the
Mhm.
boy child was there while the daughter was running and I was running baby girl on him. So all the females in the house were running around while, as I said, the princess was sitting there. But more than that, I was giving him the message that I don't trust you, that you're not capable, you're not strong, you're not capable. I can do it better than you. I can do it faster than you. And in fact, your older sister can too, because I trust her to be my helper. And I don't think I'm alone in doing things like that. We get so rushed and particularly I think if you're working and you're rushing out the door and you're trying to get to schools, maybe get the kids to crash or you're heading off and and even if you're not working, our lives are busy and we're scooting around in the mornings and we do things for our children they are so capable of doing for
Yes.
themselves. Do you
Mm.
know who's brilliant at this? Early years educators. They are so aware of the child's potential. There's a theorist in early ed, and his name is Vygotsky, and he talks about children having the potential to be ahead above themselves. So wherever they are, they actually could be ahead above themselves. That's their zone of potential, if you like, with a little bit of support from us. Not doing it for them, but giving them a little bit of support. Early years educators are phenomenal at that. They're so good at just pushing a child not way beyond their limit, but just within that zone that they're
Mm.
actually capable of it if you just give them a little bit of support. And I think
Mm.
as parents, we nearly do the opposite. We do so much for them that if we can stand back, that same theorist, it's called sociocultural theory, and we talk about scaffolding our children.
Mm.
So you see yourself as the scaffolding on the building. Yeah, you've heard it before. Many of the parents listening may have heard it before. So you see yourself as the scaffolding on the building, and you think if the builder is building an apartment block, what does he do? Well, he puts in really good foundations, like we'd like to see those, but then he puts up the scaffolding. As soon as that building is strong enough, he removes the scaffolding. So as parents, you think, I'm there for support. I'm there when you need me. But actually, if I think you might be okay without me, I just step back. I might be hovering in the background, but I'm really letting my children see what they're capable of, what they can do for themselves. Because I
Mm.
think in parenting, it's what we want, isn't it? We want to grow independent children. I mean, we
Mm.
want our children to grow and to be strong,
Mm.
capable, full of self-esteem adults. But by actually encouraging independence when they're little, well, not even when they're little, right through their lives, we're scaffolding that process. We're making it happen.
Mm.
So the more we can really encourage them to do stuff for themselves. I'll
Mm.
tell you something, Sharon. I was saying this to a lady the other day, and it's a really simple thing. Her daughter struggles a little bit with anxiety. And I was saying to her, for the month of September, get a notebook and make it your notebook, your adventure notebook. And each day, so start page one for Monday, whatever day, on each page, think of a little adventure, something you'll do that day that just pushes them outside their comfort zone. So for
Mm.
this little one, it might have been if she went into the shop with mum, she might ask the shop lady, oh, can I have a pint of milk or whatever? She might
Mm.
ask the question. It could be maybe taking the dog for a little walk around the cul-de-sac. It could have been calling for her friend. Could have been maybe picking up the phone and calling somebody. But everything was just a little step outside her comfort
Mm.
zone. Could have been washing the dishes, helping mum make dinner. It doesn't matter what it is,
Mm.
but just something a little bit outside the comfort zone. And in each day of the notebook, you write down what you plan to do that day. But then before you go to bed, you write down how you felt
Mm.
after doing it. And then you pick something to try the following day. And I was saying a month. If you try that for a month, you will have a child who feels more independent, feels more confident. That baby step outside the comfort zone, oh, it's so good for them.
I
Really,
love
really good for
that.
them. It's so simple, isn't it? But really
Yes,
effective.
I love that. Two things I want to talk to you about. So, one of the things is when you were talking there, I said, oh, I must say that to Mary because you said, we want our children to be confident and resilient and self-sufficient and all of those things.
Mm,
But then I go back to us, because we're here having the chat and we were under the radar or we weren't picked or
mm,
noticed or congratulated or any of those things. And again, we found our way later on in life, thankfully.
yeah.
I suppose we developed resilience by having to go through that maybe feeling
Yes.
of not being seen or heard or understood. So we developed resilience, without the approval of others. And the other thing was that, again, it's for parents listening,
Mm,
that you could be a child or you could have a child that is shy and sensitive and they get a little bit anxious about everything. not just about school.
Yeah.
And again, the feeling of, so this is one thing you mentioned is like, how did you feel about that? And I think parents need to do that themselves as well. So when your little child is going to school and they come home and they're crying and upset and they don't like it and they don't want to go back again,
Mm.
and the parent might say, but you'll be grand, it's only a week, and we'll
Yeah.
be fine, don't worry about it. I think the parent needs to ask themselves, oh my God, how does this make me feel? Because
Yeah.
for me, like the child, we remember everything by the way it makes us feel.
Feel.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so right, Sharon. And think about if your child is coming home upset from school and they want to go back. If you think about how that makes you feel, when our children are hurt, when our children are struggling, it is just like an inferno, a
Mm,
volcano within us.
mm,
It's that parental instinct kicks in, and it's really hard to be calm
mm,
when your child is really struggling. But by doing exactly what you said, by actually allowing yourself feel that, because
mm.
it's not wrong to feel that. That,
No.
that's love.
Yeah.
What you're feeling is coming from the love you have for your child. So if
Mm,
you give yourself the space to allow yourself to really feel that way, nearly, the way they say, feelings not permanent, they flow through you,
mm,
allowing your body to feel it, your soul to feel that feeling, allowing it to wash over you,
mm,
then enables you to come down and be calm for your child.
mm,
Because when your child is struggling in that way, what they actually need from you is that calm presence. And
mm.
just what you said, and we all do it. Don't be silly. You love school. What do you mean you don't like school? Don't be get in the door there.
Yeah.
If we can actually acknowledge their feelings,
Mm,
if they feel that way, you might not understand it. You might look at that junior infants class and think, how could they not love it? It's beautiful, gorgeous teacher, maybe a brand new school, beautiful
mm,
equipment, and their friends there, and you think, oh, he has to love it. No, if he's feeling that way, he needs to be allowed feel that feeling
yeah.
too. So just validating it and saying, yeah, it can be hard to get used to school. It can be a little bit scary sometimes with 30 other children in the class.
Mm,
And yeah, it can feel hard. So just acknowledging it is great. Can I say one thing for parents? And it's just a lovely thing.
mm,
It was an early years educator was saying this to me. A parent was saying an early years educator said it. So this parent, her daughter was struggling going back into preschool. And again, it's the emotion because we start to panic. The anxiety rises within us. So talk about the child being anxious. Like the child is feeding off our anxiety because we're now freaked out. We're
mm,
terrified. Every morning we're working ourselves up to it. And she was going in the door and she was really stressed. And the educator said to her, oh, wow, you really are such a great mum. Your little
mm,
one really struggles to come away from you. Your home must be such a loving place that your child really wants to be there.
mm,
I should have changed everything. She just thought, oh my God, I don't need to feel shame or feel a
mm,
failure. My child actually really loves me. Very often, particularly with separation anxiety,
mm.
it's not where they're going, it's what they're leaving.
Leaving.
It's you. Yeah, they're leaving you. And a
Yeah.
few little tricks, and Sharon, this is so simple, but it's lovely. If you get on the inside of your wrist and you draw a little love heart on your wrist, you draw the exact same on their
Mm,
wrist, and you get them to put their little fingers, like you're feeling a pulse, put your hand there. They feel their heartbeat,
yeah.
and you say you feel that little heartbeat. Anytime you need to think of me, you just press your heart. And anytime I need to think of you, I'll just press my little love heart. It's connection. It's
Yeah.
just bringing them back connection. Pebble in my pocket is another one.
Yeah.
And I say this to parents, get two maybe gemstones, or if you're near a beach, go off to the beach and get two little stones, little pebbles. You can get them from your back garden, anywhere,
Yeah.
but they need to be similar. So one for you, one for the child, and it's your pebble in my pocket. So the child takes one in their pocket or in their lunchbox, whatever, but you take the other pebble and you show them, I'm going to hold this, pop it in the pocket of your jeans, whatever. It's in my pocket. While we're away, you squeeze your pebble and I'll squeeze mine. Children are so concrete that you
Mm,
think of me is hard, but to touch a love heart or to
mm,
squeeze a pebble, it's absolute connection because
yeah.
that's what the problem is. It's the connection to the one they're leaving that they
Yeah.
just have to gently, gently get used to that because we then think, oh, maybe school is bad and maybe they don't like it.
No.
It's what they're separating from, not what they're
Yes,
going
I think
to.
that is so important. And for everybody all over the world who
Um,
will listen to this, and people say, oh, they don't like school, whatever. Again, to remember, they've got so used to you being there for them all the
uh,
time while they're
yeah,
small. And suddenly they're going, now my mammy is pushing me out the door and she
yeah,
wants me to go into this new place with all these strangers and sit
yeah.
at the desk and whatever. It's completely new to them.
Mm.
And I do remember even a story, my second one, going into from play school and Montessori and going into junior infants and came home and said, we can't play until Friday and it's only
Oh,
1 hour and the tears. And I said, oh, that doesn't seem really fair because you love playing.
yeah.
Yeah, will you go in and talk to the teacher and ask them to give us more time? And it was so, I felt broken.
Oh,
And
Sharon.
I went, oh, there's their playfulness
Oh,
taken away in school. Sit down,
yeah,
learn the words, learn your numbers, and all the time looking over at the toys on
yeah,
the
on the
shelf.
shelf.
And if one child was bold, the
Oh,
the hour was taken away from the whole class. I mean,
oh,
punishment and discipline
yeah.
started in junior infants. So yeah, lots of different things that I've seen over the years.
Mm.
Mary,
It
to
is
go,
changing, though. I must say that one thing
it
too.
is
It
changing
is changing, and we now have Ashton that's in the preschools has gone into junior and senior infants, so it is more play-based. But it's such a big transition for them.
a big. So I know it's obviously the parents are going to be listening to this, and your two books are a great help. I know to everybody that has read them, Mary, and I wish that I had them when my kids were younger and I was that young, insufferable parent wanting to do my best and not
Yeah.
having a clue and looking at, and it wasn't social media for me because as young parents I didn't have it, but it was
Mm.
even down at the school gates or my children coming home and saying, they got an A on this and I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And it was all of the comparing and comparison
Oh, yeah.
started already.
Oh,
So, yes, I know those books are amazing. But for me, again, for parents listening, because Mary could spend hours talking to you about all of this, but I know you're doing a series on anxiety and going back to school and all of that on Dublin
yeah.
FM and for your podcast. But anxiety is normal. I want to say that
Oh,
to
yes.
everybody. It's
Yes.
normal and it's really just trying to keep us safe. So
Yeah.
you think about that in terms of your child. So first don't go, oh, my child has anxiety. It's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's a normal thing to new experiences and
Yeah.
new adventures in their lives. And it's trying to
Absolutely.
keep them safe.
Yeah.
So so what would you say to a parent when they start saying, "Oh my God, my child is so anxious, they're so worried, they're so fearful"?
And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Sharon. There's a danger that that if we think our child is really suffering with anxiety or struggling, whoa, it sets off anxiety within us. And you mentioned something there about keeping our children safe. And again, I think very often in society today, we think, I need to keep my child as safe as possible. I need to keep them safe from everything. No, you need to keep your child as safe as is necessary. And
Mm,
there's a difference. It's about finding that balance between safety and care, but also letting them see that they're strong and they're brave. They have a bravery within them. And one of our jobs is to help them unlock that and help them see that. Sharon, I often say, actually to teenagers, but it's an important message for parents. I say to teenagers who are struggling with anxiety, the kids who don't get anxious hardly at all, should they just sail through life? They're not being brave. If a child is struggling with anxiety in any way, they sometimes getting up in the morning, going to school
Mm.
takes bravery. They have the bravery within them. And our job as parents, if you think your child is starting to struggle at all, instead of panicking, is to think, now I'm going to help them find their inner bravery. So it's about pushing them baby steps out of their comfort zone. It's about encouraging them to be independent, bit like me stopping to do my son's shoes. And let them see everything they can do. They need to see I'm strong, I'm capable. Part of anxiety is a little part of our brain overestimates the danger in the world and
Mm.
underestimates our ability to cope. And
Mm.
some of our children, unfortunately, are just maybe genetically predisposed to do that. So part of our job is to let them see what we know they have inside them. But in order to do that, we need to find our inner bravery. So
Mm.
we need to be brave. We need to show a brave face. One of my kids struggles with anxiety, and I'm always talking to her about the bravery within her and finding her inner brave. Well, we went to Tato Park one day, Sharon. Oh, you know where I'm going here. I hate heights. And they have this walking through the trees thing. You know what I mean? These walkie things are attached by a rope. Oh my gosh. Makes me nervous. The heart's palpitating even thinking about it. Anyway, somebody suggested that myself and my two sisters might like to go on it. Anyway, I don't know how it happened, but I got nominated. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my daughter turned around and she said, Mum, come on. You have the bravery within you. You can do it. And what could I do, Sharon? I thought, okay, you're using my own ploys against me. So I had to do it. And I got up there and did it. Now, I was really scared. And in fact, she had to go backwards on the thing in front of me to help me along. I was terrified. And I was the lowest level, Sharon. There were probably 8-year-olds on the high
Yeah.
level above me. But anyway, but oh my gosh, how good I felt when I did it.
Mm.
You know, if we push ourselves outside our comfort zone, if we let our children see that we do this in life, that sometimes something scares you a little bit, but do it. And the best way to get kids to do it is through play. Like they're on their bike and you say, come on, let's go a little faster. They're on the swing in the playground. Oh, let's go a little bit higher. Now don't push them way higher. A little bit. It's all baby steps. So even in play, encourage them to be more rough and tumble. Encourage them to be braver in their attitude towards life. Put your money where your mouth is. Do the same yourself, and it'll make all the difference in the world.
Mm. Oh my God, absolutely. And I have a hype story like that as well. And this is only a few years ago, and they were all going on it. And of course, I'm always saying to them, you have to try new things and new experiences. That's how you grow resilient, and you'll try something new, get out of your comfort zone. Oh my God, my legs were shaking like jelly. And in my mind, I was going, why are my legs doing this? Why are my legs doing this? I have to
Yeah.
take this next step. But I did, and I fought my way through to get to the end. And then they did other things. And I said, oh no, I go down and take photographs now. You're brilliant. And I was encouraging them from down below. And one of my grown-up children said, please stop cheering me. You're driving me crazy. So again, it is you're learning through your
Yeah.
children. So
Yeah.
and I've said that to you before, Mary, they're my greatest teachers. They've shown me,
Oh,
and especially
yeah.
as adults, they tell me now, where maybe I could have done it differently or shown
Yeah.
them it differently. And even as adults, I'm standing back going, there is a time just to stand back to cheer silently, not to be roaring and the side of the pitch and going, my Johnny,
Uh,
brilliant, look at him, he's mighty, and they're mortified. And there is
oh,
a time to gently whisper, I'm
yeah.
here when you need
Yeah.
me, not to be running after them.
No.
And,
Oh, that's lovely, Sharon. And it's
Mhm.
so true.
Yeah. And it is that silent whisper. And still I do it. My two children are not at home, obviously, as grown-up kids now. And I still whisper to their hearts
Oh.
every night before I go to bed, because on some
Oh.
level, I know they can hear me because I can't be sending good night text still because they'll think, just stop, mom. And I used to say that to my kids. I said, and like you with the heartbeat and the wrist, I used to say, here's your heart and here's my heart. And wherever you are and where I am, you'll always be in my
Yeah.
heart. And I repeated it and repeated it and repeated it to them that I must ask them now someday, do they still think about that? But for
Yeah.
me, it was really important because it was a way of me relieving my own fear and anxiety.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
had to find that for myself so I could then show my children. So I
Yeah.
think again, parents, we do our best. We feck up
That's it.
sometimes, but that's how
Yes.
we learn. We can't give out to ourselves. Things are changing. We have to change. We have to be aware. You can't protect your child from every
No.
single thing in the world. They have to fall, get a scrape on their knee, bang their head. And if you're there to kiss it better, it won't take away the scrape, but they'll know you're there when you need them. When they come running to you,
Yeah.
don't keep running after them every time they have a fall and a scrape. They have to
Yeah.
get back up again and dust themselves off.
Isn't that exactly it? And I think it is that message. You are enough.
Mhm.
You are the parent your child needs. They don't need a perfect parent. As I said, no such things exist. But that's not what they need anyway. They need
Mhm.
you with all your mess ups and your
Yes.
flaws and your failures. But you who love them like no other,
Yes.
you are who they need. And, it's that connection and that belief, as you say, that little whisper in the
Mhm.
darkness, that's what they need from us. It really is. We do not have to be perfect. If we can let go of that, we can strengthen the connection.
Yeah. And all through this, for me, what has shown up is connection.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, we need to connect in with ourselves, what our own fears and anxieties are, what our own needs are, so that we can deal with what's going on for us, even if it is relating to, the fears our kids are experiencing, and that we try not to. And again, I'm talking about even our dreams, just because we have a dream for our child to be highly educated and do this course that
Oh, yes.
that's not our child's dream,
No.
that we have to, and there's the other conversations. We could have
Oh, yes.
so many, Mary, to stand back and observe and witness your
Yeah.
child growing into the
Yeah.
person they want to be. Because, and again, I come back to us as examples. We were two completely different people in school.
Mm.
And here we are now, Mary, having
Yes.
a conversation on a podcast,
Yeah.
international,
Yeah.
and we are talking about the books you've written, the people you're helping, the lectures you do, and it's phenomenal. So
Ah,
if you go back to that young
yes.
Mary, what do
Oh,
you
I
say to her?
know.
What do you
Oh, do
say
you
to her?
know? I think, Sharon, I really would say be brave. When I think about me as a child, I was always scared. I was always the one who would stand back and want to hide in the background and didn't have that self-belief. And I certainly didn't have it. I could be a divil, actually,
Yeah.
but I didn't have real self-belief growing up through school. And I think I if little me could see me now on the radio or on a podcast or whatever, it'd be, what? Little Mary would never believe it. And I just wish I could let little Mary know. Just be a little braver. You're so scared to take a chance. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. Just take a chance. Just be brave. That's the message I'd love to go back and give. But again, to any parent who's worried about their child, as you said, Sharon, look at the two of us here now. You know, you can go through times in life where you don't believe in yourself and your child, you're worried about them because they're feeling anxious or they're struggling in whatever way. Life takes twists and turns and you know we find our path eventually. Most of us really, really do. Um, I suppose, yeah, it's finding that inner bravery to take the chance, isn't it?
Yeah. And that there is so many paths open to us now and
Yes.
opportunities that again, it's not just focusing on the one path. It's because again, there's so many guests I've had and they had all this planned, the trajectory, the planned life, and then things took a different avenue
Yes.
completely, but it ended up turning into something amazing.
Mm.
Mary,
Oh,
You have said that to your younger self because I think, like I look back at my younger self, I always say she's my hero because I used to say she was the victim, but she's not a victim because she got us where we needed to be. Your
yeah.
little Mary got you, even with her lack of belief in herself and all of
Mm.
that. She found her way. And because of maybe your past experiences, you went on to support other children, adolescents, and parents and
Yeah.
educators. So maybe that path was where you were meant to be, Mary.
Ah. Oh, thank you, Sharon. You have such a lovely way of looking at life. It's lovely.
I suppose again, it's through our own experiences, isn't it,
Yeah.
Mary? And that we can only pass on what we have learned and
Yeah.
our own wisdom and our own personal experiences, but that, the many parents that will listen to this and they'll go, but yeah, that doesn't, my child is not like that, though, they're different. And again, each of our children are individuals,
Yeah.
and it's to look at them and say they don't have to be like anybody else. That advice may not work for you or your
Hmm.
child, but to find out what does work for you. So I think it's
Yeah.
just to be more connected to yourself, what you
Yeah.
need, and then
Yeah.
you'll be able to connect better to your children. And that's through me fecking up many
Yeah.
years of
Uh,
not knowing what to do.
well, Sharon, I absolutely agree with you. I'm completely on board. The most important thing is our connection with them. That when that love and connection is there, and they are all unique, but just don't worry about that. That connection, and no matter if even if you think I don't know what to do or how to help my child, connection, and everything else will come afterwards.
Oh, Mary O Kane, if we had 20 hours, I'd say we'd be still talking.
Uh,
But you know what? I love the fact as well that we have connected, and I was so grateful to you that you invited me on to share my
oh,
own story with you. And I love that you have come back to share
oh, thank you for having
yours.
me, Sharon. And I
Oh,
love that we've connected too.
oh, I love it. I just think you're amazing, and I love everything
Uh,
you're doing. And I think your books, as I said, they are great practical insights and a guide to parents that they will be able to have some kind of, I always say it's like the tool bag or the toolkit, to look back on and feel like, oh, geez, I'm not the only one, or oh, it's okay,
yeah,
I can try this. And again, what you said about the scaffolding is you can't hold your child up forever, especially even as they get
yeah,
older. You
yeah,
have to stand back and let them grow into who they need to be for themselves.
we do.
So, Mary O'Kane, thank you very much. So, you can check out drmaryo'kane.ie, her website. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you can check out her podcast on Dublin City FM and her books, Perfectly Imperfect Parenting, Connection, Not Perfection, and her best selling book, Anxious Children in an Anxious World, Facing Fears and Finding Brave. Mary, thank you for a beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sharon.
A pleasure. So, thank you to everybody. If you enjoyed listening to this conversation and if it can help anybody that you know in your life, please do share it and go and follow Dr. Mary O'Kane all over social media and her podcast. And until next time, take care.